If relationships are the real currency in life, if referrals are the lifeblood of business, how do we, the entrepreneurs, the small business owners, compete in this ever-changing, fast-paced world? How do we become more so we can attract more? My name is Curtis Lewsey, and I'm your host. Those are the questions, and in this podcast, we will reveal the secrets. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Referral Secrets. And we have a rock star here we're going to be interviewing today. His name is Bill Cates, over 40 years as an entrepreneur, and really is the go-to guy when it comes to referrals. He has referralcoach.com, so make sure you go check that out. And he's written several books, and we're going to talk about a couple of them today and dive into some things, tactical stuff that you'll be able to take away from this and implement into your business. So without further ado, we're going to introduce Mr. Bill Cates. How you doing today?
Doing well, Curtis. And just in case anybody mistook what you were saying, it's not Bill Gates. Missed it by one letter and a lot of brain cells and a few $1 billion. But here's the deal. You know, Bill Gates is on a mission to give away his money, and bully for him. I'm on a mission to help you make more money, right? Get some of that flowing in your direction.
Very, very nice. That's awesome. Well, if you don't mind, please share your story, like where you got started and kind of what brings you here today.
Yeah, well, we'll keep it fairly quick. I want to make it about our listeners as much as possible, but it's good for them to have a sense of who I am. And so I guess I started my business life about 40 years ago in the book publishing business. I started and sold 2 book publishing companies, one pretty much on the heels of the other. The first one, I made some pretty good money. The second one, I pretty much got rid of my debt to my partner. So, you know, when someone says they sell a business, sometimes they make some good money and sometimes they just get, away from the debt. So I had both of those happen for me. But a friend of mine said, I was looking for the next thing to do. He says, you should be a speaker, consultant, author. You've learned so much. You have so much to teach in marketing and sales, and you should do that. I said, okay, well, it's worth looking into. So I slowly kind of figured that out and gave some speeches and wrote a few articles. But then I latched onto this referral thing, and I was listening to some tapes. Some of the folks listening will be old enough to remember when we actually had these things that spin around with tape on them, and it was about referrals. And I was thinking, yeah, but if I was going to teach this, I'd say this and I'd do it this way. And it was just when the internet was really coming out, and you couldn't find a lot on the topic. There was a little, but so I wrote and taught and learned a lot as I taught. And so in '96, my first book, Unlimited Referrals, came out. And then since then, I've written 3 more books on referrals behind me there. Don't Keep Me a Secret, Get More Referrals Now and Beyond Referrals. And then my latest book is called Radical Relevance, which is kind of the next step in how we talk about our value. Once we get introduced to someone, we've got to make sure that we continue to talk about our value in a way that's relevant to them and compelling. Otherwise, we won't catch their interest, or we'll lose their interest too quickly. So it's all about that, about the value. So it's all related to acquiring more clients. Everything I have worked on for all these years is, call it client or customer acquisition.
Why, the latest book, let's talk about that for a little bit. Okay. There, Radical Relevance. Yeah. Why is this concept so important enough for you to write a whole entire book on?
Yeah. In fact, I wrote more than a book. I had so much material that, and I didn't want the book to be too big because then people wouldn't read it, and that wouldn't do anybody any good. So I actually, if you get the book, Radical Relevance, you actually get into what we call the Radical Relevant Toolkit, which is a whole bunch of bonus material that I just didn't want to put in the book because it would make the book too big. But yeah, I wrote a lot on this, and the problem it solves, we always want to think about our product and service. What's the problem it solves, right? And so in this case, it was the fact that just so hard. I'm sorry, what?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Thought you said something. That's all right. Cool. Thank you for agreeing. So it's the fact that it's just so hard to reach people, right? It's so hard to get through all the noise and all the messaging. It's been estimated the average person gets like 3,000 marketing messages a day. And I guess it comes from us in a lot of different directions. But so how do you cut through all this? So the subtitle is Sharpen Your Marketing Message, Cut Through the Noise, Win More Ideal Clients. So it's again, it's about the messaging so that we get on someone's radar, we get their attention, because whatever we say is relevant to them. I'm sure that everyone listening to your podcast has gotten a lot of email and phone calls and other messages that are totally irrelevant. Like, this person has no clue who I am. Why are they sending me this message? Well, I'm on a mission to kind of get people to stop doing that sort of stuff and to narrow your focus into different target markets and different bullseyes, so that when you do deliver a message to someone, it's the right message to the right person in the right way at the right time. Everything is as relevant as you possibly can make it. And that way you stand a chance of cutting through all that noise.
So share with me, do you have a really cool story that you might be able to share on somebody that you helped, or a company you helped sharpen their marketing message, and
Yeah.
it attracted somebody, their ideal client? I would love to see, like, because there's a lot of crossover in so many different industries. So
Yes. Well, let me give you one actually where it was a combination of the referral things that I also teach and help with, consult and speak and write, and with this. So there's a firm in Canada called McKay CEO Forums, founded by a very smart lady, Nancy McKay. And when she came to me, she had about 100 clients paying her good money. She was doing well, where CEOs would come around and meet in these mastermind groups, forums, and but she wanted to expand it. And she wanted to expand not just the members coming in, but if she got more members, she'd need more chairs to run the meetings, forum chairs, she calls them. So we started implementing her referral process into her business. And over a 7-year period, she went from 100 clients paying a lot of money to 1,000 clients paying a lot of money and more chairs, right? So she built an extremely successful business using the referral stuff. And we wrote scripts and we modeled it. You know, we did role play and put it on video and audio and all that sort of stuff. So we started with that, and then she started to want to try to attract a different type of CEO. For some of her groups, she wanted to go kind of upscale, if you will, to larger businesses for some of her groups. And so that's when we started working on her value proposition and how to talk about what they do in a way that's going to attract the right people. And the right value proposition, the right way to talk about what you do should be built to attract the right people and repel the rest. I know repel is a strong word. And if someone's brand new in business, they may be thinking, well, I can't afford to repel anybody right now. Okay, well, I get that when you're first starting, but eventually you get to a point where you have your right fit client, the people you really want to serve, and the people who are meant to be served by you. So how we talk about what we do will attract those people. The other people, it won't be relevant to them. They'll kind of self-qualify themselves out, even unconsciously. And then we start attracting the right people into our business. And so we started doing that with her and all her chairs and helping them talk about their value. And I did a lot of one-on-one coaching with those folks, because each one of those forum chairs had a slightly different take on who they wanted to attract. So we had to adjust it. We couldn't use a cookie cutter approach to talking about the value. Some firms I work with, they want everyone on the same page, right? They want everyone who's selling or serving to talk about the company, the product, the service in the same way. Other firms I work with, their folks have a little more freedom to go after different types of markets, and so they need to adjust the formula for each. So that's a big success story that I feature in the book. And I continue to work with Nancy. In fact, I got an email this morning where she referred me to someone in Canada to do some work with them. So that's what happens, right? When you do good work, hopefully you're going to get some of those unsolicited referrals.
That's powerful. Wow, 100 to 1,000 paying more. That's incredible. Now, so when you help them sharpen their marketing and their messaging, is value proposition one of the legs of that you teach?
Yeah. So the best way to go about it, and some people that I work with have done this, some haven't done it yet, or they need to revisit it, And so a lot of people equate the value proposition with the elevator pitch, right? The short way to talk about what we do. I see it a little bit differently, and it's a little bit semantics, but I see the value proposition as really the full length and depth and breadth of value that we provide to a prospect and to a client or customer, all the different things we do from the minute we're courting them to become a client to serving them over time, all the questions we ask, the things we teach, the product, the service, all of that. So that's the entire value proposition. And from there, we start to pull different ways to talk about the business. So from there, what makes us different with all that, right? Do we have a way to differentiate ourselves? And that can be very helpful. In some businesses, it's more important than others to have a differentiator. You don't always have to have that. I know that flies in the face of what some people teach, but it usually helps. And so then we start to cull it down, and then I teach what I call a value positioning statement, and that is a short, succinct way to talk about what we do, because we do need those short, succinct ways. It could be in an email to a prospect, it could be beginning of a speech or a presentation on a webinar, it could be talking to a prospect or a referral source. So we have to have those short ways to answer the questions. What do you do and who do you do it for and how do they benefit? But first, it's always good to get really in touch with all the values. So that's the process we put people through.
Now, in communicating the value proposition, is every company a little different in the outlets of like that they get that out there? What are some of the things that you do teach? Like what media channels, what are some of the things that some of your clients are doing and getting success with?
Yeah. So what happens is we end up having this body of work that we do where it's a pretty comprehensive look at the value. One of the important things that we do, and every business owner / salesperson should do this, and that is to articulate what are the emotional factors in working with our prospects and customers, not just the demographics of age and location and occupation or whatever fits your business, but the psychographics, what are the fears, concerns, doubts, worries related to what you sell, the problems, how do they react to those problems, and what are the opportunities, the aspirations, the things that they aspire to. And we got to be very clear on that, because that needs to be part of how we talk about our value. We need to be able to tap into that emotional piece to our message so that we'll attract them. The brain really kind of looks for that. And so that's one of the things we end up doing. I also like to work on some of the pet peeves we might have about what other firms with whom we compete might do in the marketplace. If we do something a little different, we do it differently because, we don't like the way others do it. It's not as comprehensive or complete or whatever. And so knowing the pet peeves, that will help us create our differentiation. So after, we eventually put this document together that what do you do? Who do you do it for? How do you do it? What's the process? Why do you do it? Your emotional connection to your value and things like that. And then anytime you're crafting a message, whether it's going to be an email or a LinkedIn message or a Facebook ad or website or a LinkedIn profile, whatever the medium is, you have this little couple of sheets, body of work from which you draw that value. So you don't have to make it up differently each time. You create a consistency of message, which is very important, that when people see you in different places, the message is essentially the same. They can tell that it's you. And you're driving home that big problem that you solve or that big opportunity that you help them take advantage of. And so first we do all the messaging, and then we consider the medium, and then we tailor all that work to the medium. So to me, radical relevance is this. It's having the right market and attracting the right market with the right message to the right person at the right time through the right medium. All the stars have to align to truly get people to pay attention to what you're doing. So if any marketing activity that you put out there, whether it's email campaign or Facebook or whatever it is, you have to look. You have to say, am I going after the right market? Do I have the right message? Is it to the right person? Did I deliver it through the right medium in the right timing? You have to look at all those things, because if one of those things is off, then obviously the marketing campaign is not going to work as well than if you get all the stars aligned. So it comes with a lot of testing. I have a long background in direct marketing, and so testing is critical. We put our best guess out there. We think this will work, right? Based on what we know about our market and our product service. But value is in the eye of the beholder, right? Value is in the eye of the prospect and the client. So what we think might be on target isn't necessarily what we need to do. So we adjust and we adjust and we adjust and test until we capture it, until it starts to work.
Amazing. And that all sounds great. And then there's obviously challenges out there, and you talk about the two biggest challenges in your forward. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about these challenges?
So I touched on one already. One of them is the marketing message overload, right? So it is the fact that there's so much out there. Now, the straightest line to relevance, by the way, the straightest line to grab the attention of someone who doesn't know you is an introduction from someone they do know. So the referral / and I like to call it introduction, because we really do need to get introduced these days. And that is the fastest path to relevance. Now we have to continue with the right messaging, of course, but that's the fastest way in. So that's what cuts through most of the noise out there. If someone is approaching you and you don't know who they are, but they're mentioning one of your best friends, then you'll at least open the email, right? And you'll probably read the message because your best friend referred them, right? So that's how you cut through all that, get the foot in the door. So that's one of the problems. The other, and this is with sales and marketing, and any salesperson can identify with this, and that is essentially inertia. And what I mean by that is the prospect for your business is doing something, whatever your problem you're trying to fix or whatever, they're doing it in a certain way, right? They're moving in a certain direction or not moving at all, right? So, from Newton's first law of motion, a body in motion tends to stay in motion, a body at rest tends to remain at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. So we kind of need to be that outside force. We need to find a message that's going to grab their attention and just shake them up just enough. Well, they'll go, oh, that's interesting. That's relevant. I'll pay attention to that, right? Otherwise, they'll just keep going or not going in the direction they are. So part of that is the incumbent. Sometimes we're going into a company or trying to work with an individual. They're already using someone, in the same area that we work. And so we've got to unseat the incumbent. And that's not always easy because, the devil they know is often better than the devil they don't know. Maybe they're not 100% happy with that person or that company, but if we don't separate, if we don't create that differentiation gap and how it's a benefit to them, then they'll just stay with who they're working. Right? It's a lot of work to change. It's a lot of work to take on a new product or service, unless they're really fed up. And then, of course, they'll be ready. So
if you don't mind, I'd love to, because you do some amazing stuff around, obviously there's a lot that you do with scripting and whatnot. And we talk a lot in the Referral Secret program that, that's not what you do that's the most important. Because as you talk about, there's so much noise out there. We had to cut through the noise. And what are some of the things that you do? Like once somebody creates that relevance and they get that introduction to somebody, it works out. From that point forward to build a business based on referrals and take care, what are some of the things that, like some secrets and some things that you do with some of your coaching to help them?
Sure.
I would love for you to share.
Yeah, in fact, I'll give it to you in 3 words, and then I'll elaborate a little bit on each word. And really, you can picture a wheel turning with the words, and I'll try to bring this to life for you. So the first word is engagement. What that means is a relationship with prospects and clients that feel engaged with your value and engaged with you as a person or the personality of your company. There's a personal connection there. And so one study done by a gal, Julie Littlechild out of Toronto, demonstrated there's a low correlation between client satisfaction or customer satisfaction and the giving of referrals. What we need to do is not satisfied, but engaged. Right? So they like the questions you ask. They like the things you teach. They like your responsive service, all the points of value, and they like you. and other people, that work with you, your team, if you work in a team environment. So that's critical. And that's critical throughout the entire relationship, the prospect, the brand new client, the ongoing client. So we've got to become more referable. Well, how do you know if you're referable? Well, unsolicited referrals without asking is a barometer of a certain level of engagement and referability. So if you're not getting any unsolicited referrals, or very few, then it's possible your product, your service, your relationships, some things need a little bit of work there. All right. So once you have become or are becoming referable, then the next word is leverage. So how do we leverage that? And what I mean by that is, how do we take that great relationship where people are seeing the great value and ask or suggest that they introduce us to other people? So the leverage, I've got two types of leverage. One's the promoting of referrals or introductions. Yeah, one of my books titled "Don't Keep Me a Secret." It's a phrase I've been teaching for a long time. That's one way to promote. Another way to promote is to say, I'm never too busy to see if I can help other folks you care about, colleagues, friends, whatever. And that scripting changes based on the type of business. But a lot of people confuse that, never too busy to help others, right, with asking. It's not asking, it's promoting. It has its place, it can help, but it's not the ask. The ask is, we teach a process we call the VIPS method. And that's a very specific way to ask people for the possibility of introductions to others. All right, so that's the leverage. And then the third word is connection, meaning, as I mentioned earlier, very quickly, we got to get connected, we got to get introduced. For me, the referrals, or sometimes called referred leads, call George, use my name, that just doesn't work very well anymore. George doesn't pick up his phone. George is wondering why his friend gave a number out to somebody he doesn't know. It's just hard to reach. So we've got to get introduced, an email handshake, in person if you can make it happen, but somehow it's got to be an introduction. And so what happens if you get that introduction and you get on that new prospect's radar and you start to work the principles of engagement, eventually they become a new client or customer, and then you leverage, and that wheel just spins forever and ever and ever. Engagement, leverage, and connection. Engagement, leverage, and connection. And so it is possible. And I've helped a lot of people do this, and I've seen a lot of people do it without my help. And that is to create a totally 100% referral-based or introductions-based business. And those are the three main things that you need to think about in making that happen.
So when you're talking about engagement, what are some of the things that you teach around engagement? Send out more emails, like what things are you doing?
That's the vehicle. So the way to think about it is, how do we keep bringing value into this person's life, right? What can we do to bring value? It could be something we've written. It could be a video we've created. It could be an introduction to another resource for them, right? A lot of different ways we bring value. We bring value by introducing them to other people, right? And so there's a lot of ways we bring value. And then how do we build the personal connection? I'll tell you, one of the best ways to build that personal connection early on with a brand new prospective client, maybe not even a client yet, is to talk about your client-focused why. And there's a lot of talk these days about the why. Simon Sinek popularized it very well. There may be a reason why you got into the business you're in, because you can make good money, maybe flexibility of your schedule, who knows, right? Reasons you got in. That's not the why I'm talking about. The why I'm talking about is that aha you had somewhere along the line that made you realize, wow, I really do good work for people. I do important work for people. That's the client-focused why I'm talking about. And to share that early on with a brand new prospect will help you win the business, because you're making that personal connection with them. They get a sense of who you are and what drives you. And it'll also help you become more referable more quickly in a new relationship, because it helps with that feeling of engagement. So those are some of the things that we do. I mean, one of the things we can do to create engagement quickly early on in a new relationship is what I call the here to there conversation. And it's going to sound a little different based on the business you're in, but essentially it's, where are you now, right? If it's real estate, is where you're living now. What's it look like? What are you paying? How big's the home? Da, 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 da. And what's the future look like? The new home, right? If you're a financial advisor, then maybe it's what's retirement look like? What's that there look like, or legacy? So every business has that, right? What does the there look like after we do some work together? What are you aiming for? And so what's the here? And some people are very clear on what the here looks like, and they know. Some people aren't really clear. They don't really know how to answer that very well. And you help them and they get clear. And the brain loves clarity. So they love you. And then the vision for what's possible. Some people have a pretty clear sense of that. And they like to tell you because they're proud of the work they've done to get clear. And a lot of people are clueless on what that vision of where they want to go related to what you do. And so help them get clear there. And you've brought a lot of value. And then the in between, what's it going to take to get there? What are the challenges? What are the obstacles? What are the opportunities there too? So that's an early on conversation that can bring value very quickly. I'll give you one more thing real quick on the engagement side of things. And there's a lot you can do, but one of the most important things is something I call a value discussion or a value check-in. Some people call it a communication review. Other clients of mine have decided to call it an expectations review. But essentially, as we go through our relationship with our clients over time, whether that's a 1-month relationship or a 10-year relationship or longer, that we have some built-in places to stop and see how we're doing, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how are we doing right now? Or, are we meeting your expectations? Have we fallen short in any other way? Any way? We can't be afraid of, trying to ferret out any problems. And then what is working, right? What do you appreciate about what we're doing? And this is actually the beginning of a possible request for introductions, is this value discussion. But that alone, I've been teaching this for 25 years, and just checking in more often for genuine feedback from clients or customers creates that engagement. They appreciate it. Yeah. Every now and then you hear a problem that needs to be solved and you fix it quickly. One they might not have communicated to you if you didn't ask. And then sometimes you can leverage it because they're really happy.
I was in a real estate training, and it was a virtual training, but it was a month after COVID hit last year, and they turned it from an in-person. I was supposed to be there, and I ended up showing up on the virtual event, and I was a sponsor. And so one of the things that they talked about was like everything all hit, and they're like, change your prospecting message to more they called them care calls. And they were just checking in with some of their past clients and how are you? How's your family? You popped into my mind, nothing about business.
Right.
It was amazing how many it turned into business because they asked, and how many referrals and how much because they came from a place of caring. And that's a lot what you teach.
Exactly. And so, as I mentioned, I think I work with a fair amount of financial professionals, among others. And so, when COVID hit, also, you may recall the stock market took a pretty quick dive there. Now, luckily, it didn't stay down for very long, but it got everybody very nervous, right? And so these advisors were calling their clients, doing the care calls, right? Don't worry, you're okay, you're positioned all right, or maybe we need to adjust a little, but I'm here for you, right? Ease the fears, care, right? All of that. Sometimes it wasn't anything other than just to listen. Sometimes some adjustments need to be made. But what happened is the folks that were really good at that in March and April and May of 2020, all of a sudden their referrals started to increase, the unsolicited referrals they got. And if they did ask, they were more successful because they created this feeling of engagement. They became more referable. And a lot of people weren't being called by their advisor. And so they weren't happy. And so just doing that made them stand out. So yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. How you show up when there's a problem, it shows people what you're made of, right? And we know that a relationship that's had a problem, whether it's externally caused or internally, a relationship that's had a problem that's been handled well is a stronger relationship than one that's never had a problem. So that's why we go looking for the problems, right? Is there anything we need to clean up? Or if one hits,
that's a powerful statement right there.
Yeah. If one hits, we're there for them, right? Yeah. It's amazing how some people get defensive when problems hit and don't even realize it. they'll say, oh, that must have been so-and-so department, or yeah, I guess they dropped the ball in getting back to you. So what they just did by saying that is deflected, right? Rather than being present, they kind of placed it on somebody else, not meaning to, but that's what it feels like to the person who's complaining. That's a whole other call we could do about how.
No, that's so good. I mean, it just popped into my head because we have a concierge team and they usually take care of some of our VIP clients. But when somebody comes and is very disgruntled, it no longer goes to me, it goes to that team. And they hear out all their concerns and all this stuff. But what happens is because they show up listening, right, and they already got the carte blanche from me to make them happy and do what it takes. And they're the ones coming back and giving us unsolicited referrals and giving that email handshakes because we listened, we cared, we actually did what we said we were going to do. And this is all the stuff that you teach. And like being able to turn around somebody like that, they end up becoming an awesome customer. So it was a problem. We solved it. And that relationship is tight now.
Not only did you solve it, but you solved it with the right perspective and attitude, right? And that's important too. Kind of how you show up in the solving of the problem really does make a big difference there. So yeah, I mean, I remember one of my first sales jobs, just way long ago, past life type stuff. I was promised a bunch of accounts, not new accounts, but existing accounts that the company done business with. And every salesperson loves that, right? Some automatic business. So you don't have to like just kill yourself to get started. Well, the accounts that I was given were people that hadn't done business with this company for 2 to 3 years. Why? Because there was a problem. So the first thing I had to do was, take an earful about what somebody else did or didn't do. But the ones that I listened to well, and I didn't turn them all around, but I turned a lot of them around because I was there for them and asked for a chance to demonstrate. And a lot of people gave it to me. So yeah, that's a big thing. And that, by the way, we're talking about engagement. Value connection, personal connection, how you deal with the problems works on both of those, right? It works on the value connection because you got to make sure that the product, service, whatever is working. That's the value side. But then like I said, how you show up to solve that is what impacts that personal connection. And so the problems are great opportunities. We don't like to get them, but they're great opportunities.
And so you're a lot in the financial world. A lot of companies, like when you're first getting started, you have to be heavily prospect based. And then over time, you can invest in being more marketing based and have some people come to you. Now, obviously, there's a blend there. And they say in the financial world, it's the hardest, most grueling $50,000 a year job and the not easiest, but easier, most laid back $250,000 a year job. Because once you get to that point, you can accept the clients that your ideal clients, or, you have more referral based business, and you see it all the time. Everybody wants to get to that stage where people are calling them. They're doing a great job. What are some of the things or processes that you might put into place? Has anything popped into your mind when I was just sharing that?
Yeah, a couple things. One is that, that value discussion I talked about is just to make that kind of a standard or part of your culture that, Curtis, as we move forward working together, I think you'd agree that it's important that we have good, candid, forthcoming communication at all time, that we don't hold back with each other. Would you agree with that? Yeah. So I just want to let you know on a fairly regular basis, you're going to find me checking in and saying, how are we doing? If anything isn't working, I need to know about it. Maybe we can fix it, at least prevent it in the future. And of course, we'd love to know what is working so we can keep doing that and do it for others too. So we're going to be checking in on a regular basis. You okay with that? And you go, yeah, that's great. So I've already shown you that I'm going to be there for you if there's a problem, right? That's a trust building conversation. And now I got to deliver on that promise. And I've got to make sure that I and possibly members of my team are creating that culture of checking in. People know that. So if a problem does hit, the way they express it to us is going to be much easier for us to hear because they already know we're there for them, right? So that's a huge one. Another thing to go from a little bit from that idea of prospecting to marketing, right? Where sometimes I call it a push prospecting and attraction marketing. Prospecting will never go away totally. They'll, for most businesses, even if you attract a lot of people, there's still that part of staying in touch until the time is right, and you still have to prospect a little bit unless they're just ready to do business, from the minute they talk to you, which can also happen, especially when you work from referrals. But that's where the messaging comes in, but that's where also this idea of targeting a narrow market. We're not trying to be all things to all people, but being a lot of good things or a few good things to a narrow group. And that shows up differently in different types of industries. But I'll give you an example, because I know you have some real estate folks. So I used to live in a town called Clarksville, Maryland. And I was referred to an agent, and he really wanted to come to the house, but we weren't ready for him to come to the house. I said, if you just call me in November, we will be ready. Okay. Well, he never called me, right? I mean, and I sold the house, and he lost the commission. And so I was looking for someone, and I got a flyer, right? So sometimes flyers work, that said, you're expert in Clarksville. So her expertise is Clarksville, and it's a pretty upscale area. It's big enough to stake one's career there. And so just that narrow focus was enough for me to call her. And I did my due diligence. I checked a little bit, and everyone said, she's great, use her. So I kind of used not a referral, but I used the reference path, which is a cousin to the referral. So however it may be, with financial professionals, it could be business owners in a specific industry or employees in a large company. Any business has the ability to narrow their focus. And what that does is, because our message becomes more relevant to them, and if we pick a good market, we can start to create a reputation for ourselves. And sometimes I call this reputation marketing, where we found the market where these people talk to each other. They have formal and informal ways of communicating. And so we start to build a reputation, and we get a lot of that word of mouth and knowingness of what we do. And that's what starts to attract people coming our way. That's the marketing side of things. And so, narrowing your focus. If that realtor
stayed relevant with you and was staying in touch and following up, he most likely would have earned your business.
Well, yeah. And your message is going to be right. And all the references you might provide are going to be perfect. Everything's going to be speaking totally perfect to that person. And they don't have to wonder, do you know my area, or do you know my company, or whatever? You demonstrate that you do know them. See, here's a word I want to throw out real quick, and that is the word empathy. So the most important part or aspect or concept of sales and marketing is the concept of empathy. So empathy means knowingness and appreciation for, right? We understand their situation. We have an appreciation for their situation. And so when we target a more narrow market, when we're very clear on the type of person and or company we're trying to attract, then we start to say the right things that they'll see themselves in how we talk about our business, right? We need the message to allow these people to see themselves in how we talk about what we do. And if they kind of see that our story matches their story, then they'll be interested. But if they don't see that, if we talk about our business in a way that doesn't pull them in, then they won't get that, and we won't pull them in. So that concept of empathy is critical.
That's fantastic. Well, before we wrap up, obviously, guys, check out referralcoach.com. So much great content. Buy his books. Which book would you recommend for somebody to get started with?
So if you wanted to dive into the referral thing that I teach, I'd probably say Beyond Referrals, only because it's the newest of the referral books. And I mean, they're all good in their own right, but the Beyond Referrals does cover referrals, but it also covers introductions, how to get introduced. It's got a little bit on appointment setting, because how you set appointments, how you reach out to referral prospects or people you've been introduced to is going to be different than how you'd reach out to someone that maybe came through an internet lead or something else, right? So you need to adjust. And Radical Relevance is a perfect on the heels of that. Or if you're doing pretty well on the referral side, but realize you need to close more business, or you're thinking about narrowing your focus, then certainly Radical Relevance would be perfect for that. And
it's written a lot in this times too that we're in too. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's newer. Yeah, it's newer, so it's true. I mean, relevance has always been important. So are referrals, right? Think about it. Before there was the telegraph, before there was a telephone, the internet, whatever, someone want to go do business in a different town, they bring a letter of introduction, right? It'd be like a reference on a letter by someone that everyone in that other town knows and respects. So that concept of borrowed trust that makes a referral and an introduction work, it's been with us forever. It's never going to go away. And a lot of businesses, it's the primary way your clients want to meet you. So it seems to me that you want to build a business based on how the people you want to meet you, right? I'm not saying what can work from time to time here and there, but how does someone prefer to meet you? Well, in most businesses, it is an introduction from someone else they already trust. So referrals, introduction, it's not the icing on the cake. It really is the cake. And making that commitment will make a big difference.
Referrals, not the icing on the cake. It is the cake. That's good.
Hey, you do this long enough, Curtis, you'll learn little quips like that, right?
Well, thank you so much for adding so much value to our listeners, and I'm excited to potentially have you again on sometime in the near future, maybe when you launch your 5th book.
Yeah, well, I'm writing another book right now. It's called The Language of Referrals, and it's nitty gritty scripting, phraseology, because words do matter. And I know that people, once they are given the right phrase or the right words, they go, oh, I could say it that way. I never thought about saying it that way. And so that's why
it might fit their personality more versus something else.
Right. And we give them a few variations. So, you'll find one of those variations that will speak to you, and then you'll put it through your own filter and make it work for you.
That's powerful. Exciting. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate you and all the work that you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Curtis.
Hey there, it's Curtis again. If you have not downloaded the 7 most powerful referral secrets, hop on over to referralsecrets.com. It's free. That's simply referralsecrets.com. Also, we give away prizes every week to our subscribers. So make sure you click the subscribe button. Thank you again for listening to another episode of Referral Secrets.